We're back.
Back
Is
again.
that what's cooking?
Not too much, man. Good to be back on. Well, feels like we haven't done one of these for a while, but I suppose it wasn't too long ago. But when we do one of the live ones, that's always kind of shakes things up a bit, especially when you have Tim and Michael on there. The energy they bring and the chaos. It kind of it's a bit different when it's just the two of us again.
I was laughing. I mean, Tim gets me laughing all the time anyway.
Yeah,
But yeah, if you haven't checked out the episode, go watch it because it's a lot of fun.
yeah. I had tears in my eyes when we came on to which Primarch would have a lisp. That just absolutely killed me, that question. Or Michael's answer to it, at least. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, God.
absolutely. It was a
Yeah.
ripper. All right,
So
Kira,
good.
today we're talking about a hobby mojo.
Yeah.
So how do you before we get on to explaining hobby mojo and maybe
Mm.
how we find inspiration and momentum to keep painting all the time. Um,
Mm.
do you have any news items you want to cover first?
Um, I've been doing a little bit of painting this week. I've finished off another word bearer test model. So I've done two now. I
Nice.
just finished the darker scheme on the left. I think it's more suitable for the word bearers. It's less kind of can't be really confused with the blood angels. Although I really do like that brighter red. I think it's a better color, but I think the darker red is more suitable for the word bearer legion. So yeah, pretty happy with how that turned out. I found it difficult to highlight, um,
Yeah.
but I'm painting Zardu Layak now, using the same scheme but slightly modified, and I'm much happier with it. So I'll be doing a tutorial based on Zardu, and yeah, how I got that kind of red that I'm really happy with now.
Yeah, that's great. I think I do prefer the darker red as well. I do know what you're
Yeah,
saying though, like the brighter red does certainly pop more and
yeah, yeah.
we all know that at events there's always poor lighting and
Hmm.
making your army pop from a distance is important too. So
Yeah,
that's one consideration, right? When you're painting this
yeah.
sort of style red.
I think maybe the highlights just needed to be a little bit more controlled, a little bit further refined on that bright red scheme. I don't think like maybe that bright red is the issue. It's just that it's too dominant on the model. Like if I'm kind of halve the volume of that red on the model, maybe it'll be all right. But yeah, it's difficult trying to get that scheme that stands out well on the table, but is kind of representative of the Legion. And I think with the word bearers, like with the black elements on the armor and all of the scripture and like astrological symbols and all of those kind of things, it can end up looking a little bit messy. And I think
Mm,
that might be
busy.
why yeah, busy, and I prefer maybe the brighter scheme just because it can handle that kind of busyness a little bit better, but it just doesn't feel right for the word bearers. So um, although like I haven't taken any photos of Zardu to show yet, but I'm much happier with how he's looking. So hopefully I've found the answer.
Is it tickling your word bearer's pickle? Because you've flirted with the idea for a few weeks now.
Yeah. No, not really. Like, yeah. Yeah, I like the word bearers. I really like their aesthetic. Like they've got, you can add a lot of detail to them, trophies, like parchments, purity seals, all of those kind of things. I really love the astrological symbols that they have on them. Like they look fantastic on vehicles. They have one of the best transfer sheets there is. Like Gul Vorbak are amazing models. Sardu and the Blade Slaves are amazing. Like I think their rules are pretty decent. I've got a cool idea to do some Ashen Circle with the new Mark II Assault Marines. Like I've got lots of good ideas. I just find it difficult to get into the character of the Legion and like kind of take any kind of enjoyment from that aspect of it. Like, I find them really interesting to read about, but I don't know if it's like a faction that I want to collect or not. Yeah, I'm not sure. They do tick a lot of boxes for me, but yeah, I think we're not talking about motivation today necessarily or inspiration. We've done that already, but I'm in a little bit of a slump at the moment, and I know you've had a few of those kind of wobbles as well recently, where it's
Yeah,
just difficult to find something that really speaks to me, um, army wise. But I've really enjoyed painting them. I've enjoyed using those transfers. It's been an enjoyable process, but it's not something that like immediately grabs me and makes me want to, you know, pump out 60 tactical marines or anything like that.
speaking of wobble, I've been watching the latest offering from our friends at Heresy Hammer,
Mm.
and their Word Bearers episode has got me revved up. I'm like,
I've,
"Yep, Word
I've,
Bearers are
I've,
sick. They've got sick
yeah,
rules. It'll be fun to play. Ticking a lot of boxes.
that's the
Dangerous."
danger. That's the danger. I've only just started that episode, so yeah, I'm already kind of anticipating that perhaps my the flame of the word bearer's passion will be kind of stoked a little higher by the time I get through that episode. But at the moment,
Reignited.
it's not something I've committed to. Yeah.
Well, speaking of things chaotic, just to flip
Mm.
systems for a minute, right? This may be exciting news to some viewers, but Old World's getting
Fuck
some new
yeah.
models. Chaos
So good.
Marauders of all things.
Yeah, and it's it's what like like if you're not including the Dark Oath models for AOS, it's like this kit's being updated for the first time in over 20 years. So that's pretty
Yeah,
amazing. It's pretty
that's
fantastic.
a long
And
time. That's like Corn Berserker levels of time period.
yeah, yeah. And like for the old world in particular, like we've seen new units like the Bretonian Knights on foot, and the new Cathay range and all of those kind of things. But we haven't really seen a new, like an old unit from the army list being
Yeah.
updated yet for this edition, apart from a few characters. So
Yep.
this is really something else. Like we got kind of slightly new Reavers for the High Elves, but they were just kind of like a cut up and repositioned set of the Island of Blood Reavers. So this is a
Mm,
completely new like set of Marauders on foot and Marauder Horsemen, like you're showing on the screen here. And I think they're really, really fantastic models. To be fair, I think the horses are a little bit busy, and
yep.
I don't really like the way Games Workshop do horses these days for some reason. I'm not sure. I think there's something about the heads. I think they might be a little bit too small, or the necks are too short, or there's something about the horses that I haven't enjoyed for maybe 4 or 5 years now that from Games Workshop. But there's no denying that these models are massive upgrades on what we used to have. So I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to.
massive upgrades for sure. It's super characterful, but
Yeah.
just even thinking about it makes me loathe painting all that like individual detail. It's
Oh
nuts.
man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the old kit's like just 50% skin and then the rest is like a pair of trousers, and like now it's just so much detail. But they
Yeah.
really do look fantastic. And we're getting 2 new transfer sheets with them apparently, with over 250 transfers per sheet. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those and seeing if they're like usable on some 30k forces potentially, like particularly word bearers obviously, but I could see them being useful for like Night Lords or Sons of Horus and stuff as well. So exciting times, really exciting times. And as a fan of the old world, it makes you kind of think like what might be next, like what old kits could they update next, because now that they've kind of broken the seal on updating old kits, like
Yeah.
it feels really exciting. It feels like maybe my stuff will be next, although probably won't be for about 20 years. But there's a
Probably won't
potential.
be because Dark Elves are not supported. Well,
Yeah,
they've
at the
got
moment,
legacy
yeah,
support, but we all know that secretly doesn't really count in Old World.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I
Um,
reckon they'll be back, bro. I reckon they'll be back.
yeah, maybe one day. Kieran,
Maybe one day.
I haven't painted any models this week. That is my confession. However, I do have something new to share regardless.
You have been
Um,
working hard, yeah.
hopefully I can bring this up on screen here. So I've been working on a brand new PDF for the Power Fist Patreon, and this is about sculpting Draken scale, as it's called now. Essentially, just sculpting lizard skin, and scales and that sort of stuff. So this doc is nearly finished, and hopefully by the time this episode is out, it will be available on our Patreon.
Yeah.
So I guess I've written it in a way where the technique is actually quite approachable and
Yeah.
efficient as well. So it's really good for applying to multiple models.
Yeah.
So I think no matter what your skill level is with sculpting putty and green stuff, everyone can do this.
hmm
So I'm putting the finishing touches on it tonight and tomorrow night, and then hopefully, yeah, by the time this episode is out, I'm making the promise to everyone it will be available on our Patreon.
Hell yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing this one. Like, it's a really kind of tasteful way to add some salamander flavor without like going over the top. And I feel like it's also the kind of probably this kind of the techniques can easily be transferred across for other uses, like with a little bit of modification, they could easily be used to do, like flayed skins or hides or something like that on Night
Yeah.
Lords or Emperor's Children. Or if you want to add even more detail to your new Chaos Marauders, you could definitely add some lizard skin to them as well. But I think it's going to be something that's very handy. I'd probably definitely be checking this out for maybe some ideas for future world bearer kind of projects, I think. So yeah, no, this is looking really cool. And
Yeah, so that's kind of what I went up to. And on the side as
mm,
well, I'm building the new Warhammer desk. That's nearly finished too.
true. Yeah.
And the thing that is cock blocking me from my hobby right now is real life. But that's probably the perfect segue into our main topic of the show, Kiz. So
Yep.
we're talking about hobby mojo. What's hobby mojo to you?
Yeah. And so yeah, this is different to the episodes we've done before with, conceptualizing and inspiration and all that, those kind of things. This is about how you maintain momentum in the hobby, how you get things done, and how you, manage the need to, produce while not being, getting burnt out or just even losing inspiration. So
Mm.
it's a very kind of it's a nuanced topic, and you know it's a challenge, and it's a different challenge for people, for everyone in a different way. Like at the moment, for example, it's a big challenge for you just because of how busy you are with regular life things. So by the time you get home from work and you've seen the kids and you've had dinner and all that kind of thing, you're so tired that you need to go to bed, ready for the next day. You can barely fit any hobby in there. And even if you did have the time to try and squeeze it in there, you'd be too tired. Whereas other people might just kind of, you know, lose the spark and not kind of feel, not feel the imperative or the incentive to get some hobby done, even if they do have the time. So it's a complicated issue, and I think it affects everyone to some degree at some stage, and it affects some people, very regularly. It can be a real challenge for people to get things done.
I think whether we like to admit it or not, and this is probably true for most hobbyists, the hobby comes in waves and it peaks and it troughs, right? With your momentum and your productivity and that sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
hopefully the discussion today will maybe shine a little bit of light on how we approach the peaks and how we approach the troughs, just as equally, because they are equally important. And it is just a natural part of hobby in general.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, hopefully the discussion might bring about, some common experiences or maybe, some different approaches or different ways of doing things as well to sort of get up and going and find that hobby mojo again if you have lost it.
yeah,
Um, one of my main questions for you is your work methodology, let's say, or hobby
Yeah.
methodology when it comes to painting. So, um, do you like batch painting, or do you like painting individual minis at a time for an army project?
It depends on the project, right? So I do prefer to batch paint, but I also paint a lot of individual models because I do a lot of test models or random models that aren't for a particular project. So there's no batch to paint them with. But if I ever do have um, models available to batch paint, I always take that approach. Like I probably with the large 20-man units I've done, I've always kind of broken them down into tens. So with Space Marines, tens is my limit at the moment. I've never tried to do more than 10 at a time with Space Marines. But yeah, I think depending on what the project is, I think batch painting is the most efficient. Although it does pose its own challenges because it can feel like you're not getting anywhere with batch painting.
Mm.
You can, especially if you don't have the time to commit, every single day, it can really feel like it's taking a long time to get through, a step on the squad. And if it can be quite demoralizing if you're, painting the gold on my Emperor's Children, for example, and I can't get through the full 10 to the same level to like for each step. And I have to stop for the night partway through. You can feel kind of very kind of incomplete and unsatisfying. So while I find batch painting to be, it's definitely the most efficient and it's the way I work when I'm doing a squad. Um, it definitely has its kind of upsides and downsides as far as keeping the mojo alive is concerned.
Yeah. Uh, I think back to the time where, like, for my Thousand Sons, um, I batch painted all 40 tactical Marines at once, and that was a big job. It felt like I was
Yeah.
going nowhere a lot of the time, and the way I kind of
Yeah.
broke it down was, okay, I'm just gonna do. I've only got an hour and a half this evening. I'm just gonna do highlights on 10 guys, and I'll
Hmm.
do that for the week, and then all the highlighting's done. Little
Yeah.
incremental goals when approaching
Yeah.
large batches, I find, um, does keep you a little bit more motivated, or maybe save your demoralization on it,
Yeah.
because you still get that little reward of, oh, hey, tick, I'm feeling productive. Hey, I've met my goal for the night. I'm feeling productive. So I think it's more about maybe setting realistic goals when
Yeah. Yeah.
approaching batch painting as well,
Hmm.
and maybe not biting off too much or more than you can chew in any
Yeah.
individual sitting, right? Hey, you know what's funny too. You know what always gets me when I'm doing batch painting, and like I get to a stage I just can't be fucked. Everyone gets to this point. It's like, oh man, I've got to do the medals. This is the worst part. Or hey, I've got to black out all these soft armor areas and all the other shit that I have to. Oh, it's the worst part. I always just go and paint the base because it's so stress free, and it makes it look like I've done heaps because all the bases are done all of a sudden. That's my little trick to kind of like boost my morale.
That's a good tip. Yeah. I do all my bases once I've finished the models, so that kind of trick doesn't work for me. But did 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 you learn from that experience, like painting the 40 tactical marines like all together, or do you still kind of take that approach? Because personally, I'd be breaking them up into tens, and I'd be even tempted to do something in between those tens as well, something else. So is that still the same approach you take now, or has it kind of
I
changed?
think you and I have different ways of working, and maybe we can touch on it because,
Yeah.
yeah, it is different.
Yeah.
Depending on what the army project is, and if I've got a list in my mind that I'm happy with and I want to move forward with, I'll go, okay, well,
Yeah.
what is the most arduous part of this army to paint? Is it going to be the 3 tanks that I've got, or is it going to be the 40
Mm.
Marines or 50 Marines? right? That
Yeah.
are all just bog standard gun pigs or whatever the example may be. When
Yeah.
my inspiration is at the highest, and that's generally like starting a project or at the start of a project, and I'm revved up and I'm ready to go, I will tackle the most arduous part of that list because the momentum of that feel good is going to keep me pushing through.
Mhm.
And once the most arduous block of the army is done, then it's up to me to paint and enjoy all the cool shit after that. Characters,
Yeah.
tanks, walkers, stuff that you
Yeah.
can really start getting maybe a little bit more creative with as one-off
Mhm.
pieces and pour a little bit more energy into it. Having said that, though, A, you're going to have to be happy with the list before you move forward. And B, I think I'm different to you in the way that I need that I need that milestone to hit. Whereas you, I feel, kind of paint more consistently over time, or you may have
Yeah.
more hobby sessions in the chair just naturally per week.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, okay, I've got an event coming up in 3 months. I'm gonna knuckle down and I'm gonna paint X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that's the really kind of what gets me fired up and going to stay productive. And if you're painting in that way, I think it's self accountability as well, making that promise to yourself of, hey, I am gonna push through and do this because once I've done it, I've done it. I can enjoy the models. I
Yeah.
can play with them, right? Um, but I mean, we've got two different lifestyles as well. So I admire your ability to just pick up a brush for
Yeah.
no good reason at all, just because you feel like painting and just knock out a mini that isn't even a part of what you're painting or your force.
Yeah.
To me, it's
I was
like,
going to make that.
well, do I really want to paint something random or do I want to keep adding to my army? So I've got more options to game and play with.
Yeah. I was going to make
Um,
that point. Like when it comes to hobby, like you're very time poor compared to me when it comes to the hobby. So you really do have to make the most of every session you get, and you do have to kind of break the back of those big projects so that you can get them done on time and get them to events. Whereas I have the luxury, I suppose, a bit more time to do things in a kind of more measured, more kind of casual way, and still get to the finish line without
mm,
having
but it,
to
yeah,
plan out every second and every step of the way. So yeah,
that is true.
you're right, it is a difference.
That is true. But I think even before, I had a family and stuff, when I would spend 8 hours at a time in the hobby chair and
Yeah,
not move the whole day and just
yeah,
paint, 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 it was always like a big focus on army and getting units completed. Maybe that's just because I think that's the easiest way I find to stay on track with a single project as well, because
yeah,
butterflying is a real thing, right? And
yeah,
butterflying distracts you from the hobby mojo.
yeah. I
So
think
if you don't
I think
keep
with
knocking
that, like,
over these walls with big projects,
yeah,
I my mind might tend to wander and want to do different things maybe.
yeah. I think when I'm on the roll and I do have a project that I'm invested in, like the Emperor's Children or that Alpha Legion Zone Mortalis Force, I am quite focused and I do kind of, do unit after unit after unit and I keep the
Mm,
momentum up. It's just that my kind of hobby attention does ebb and flow. And while my kind of production doesn't drop, my production is quite consistent. Um,
yes.
the focus of that production does change. So I'll go through periods where I'm committed to a force and I'll only paint that force for 6 months or whatever, and then I'll go through other periods and not paint anything for an army for up to a year. Like I was just looking earlier to find an example of when was the last time I painted a model for one of my armies to play with, and it was this model, and it was September last year. It was over a year ago, and it was like adding a single sergeant and a single vexilla so that I could split up my 20-man tactical squad into two 10-man squads. And that was, over a year ago, and it was only 2 models. So I've done a lot since then. I've painted a lot of models for myself and a lot of models for like other people as well. But yeah, my kind of production doesn't necessarily drop, but the focus really, really shifts, and that's very different to the way you paint. Whereas, you have that kind of that ultra focus to get things done, and that's why you've got like sizable armies finished, even though you have like quite serious time constraints on the hobby time you have.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think are the biggest hobby mojo killers? What are the pitfalls that kill your hobby mojo?
Um, I've experienced burnout a couple of times. Not often, to be fair. I'm quite um, I really enjoy the hobby. Like painting is my favorite, aspect of the hobby. So it's always something fun for me to do. Like I find gaming more of a chore. I find building more of a chore. Painting is where I like really enjoy myself. So fortunately, that's not really a task for me. It's something I enjoy doing. But when it was a couple of years ago when we had that awesome Lurg retreat, and I tried to paint a couple of javelin speeders up for the event, and I tried to do them in like a week or two, and I found that a real challenge. I had to like, drag myself out of bed early on the weekends to work on them. I had to stay up late to get them done.
I
Like
remember this. I remember this.
I was
Yeah, it's
waking
coming
up
back to me.
early before work to like put a varnish coat on before I went off for work to work for the day. And after that, I didn't paint for 6 weeks. I just had no inspiration to paint, and like I got them done for the event. And to like, I didn't compromise on any of my usual standards. They're to the same level as the rest of the army. But I was done. Like I didn't paint for 6 weeks, and that's like a big thing for me because I paint not every day, but most days, and I paint definitely every week. So that was a big kind of a big moment for me burning out, and it was just 2 little land speeders over a couple of weeks that just proved too much for me. And the way you were speaking earlier about painting for events and getting things done and having that deadline, I never do that, and that's part of the reason why. Like I always like I'll take an old army to an event rather than try and force myself to get things done for a new army to
Yeah.
go to an event. So I always try and just use stuff that I already have in my collection, unless it's like a character model or like maybe like an apothecary model, like 1 or 2 models for an event. I usually try not to put that pressure on myself to try and build something new for an event. I really don't enjoy having that kind of enforced deadline, and I can understand that it's really useful for some people to motivate them. But because I
Mm.
enjoy painting, I don't need to force myself to do that, and I prefer to kind of go at my own pace. Not that I'm a slow painter or anything like that, but I prefer not to kind of force myself to really kind of push it.
Interesting. I think real life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, take batch painting for a perfect example. Like you've got a big batch on the hobby desk, you've been at it for a while, all of a sudden, for no good reason, life gets in the way. It always does. It's life. And you lose a night, and then you lose another night, and then you lose one more. And then all of a sudden, going back to the desk and picking up the brush again is hard, hard, hard work. I
yeah,
know this happens to me all the time. So
yeah,
when I lose steam on what I'm actually working on at the time, I find it really hard to get back to the hobby desk to pick it back up
yeah,
again. I
yeah,
usually, when I start something, I'll paint it consistently and make that commitment until it's finished, and then maybe have a week off painting or a week off hobby, or maybe do some building next for the next couple of weeks and build up my
yeah,
next batch of whatever, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah, real life is one thing. think also when you're starting new projects and you haven't really settled on maybe your scheme or a list, that's
Mhm.
also a bit of a mojo killer. I know for me personally, like the list stuff felt like a little bit of a thorn in my side when it came to the productivity. I mean,
Yeah.
especially in that change of editions. I've spoken about this on a podcast before, but you know, building and converting 20 veterans and then maybe having them not have a place in a list anymore.
Yeah.
That was a mojo killer, right? And I was like, well, fuck, I'm kind of like I'm at ground zero again.
Yeah.
And I'm rudderless with the direction of my list now. Where
Yeah.
am I going to start? Start
Yeah.
anywhere is obviously the obvious answer, but with the way I like to work, I like focus, right? And
Yeah.
focus for me leads to the productivity. So I think
Yeah.
those elements for me are the biggest sort of mojo killers. I think I've only really had one significant bout of burnout, and that was early on. And that was probably before I painted my Ultramarines, which was my first serious Heresy army.
Mhm.
Um, and I had a layoff for about 12 to 18 months when I
Wow.
was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm so burnt out. I'm playing games. I was going to events and tournaments all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I had painted heaps as well in the lead up to that. And yeah, that's when a couple of things in my life sort of changed. And it was time to just have a break. And breaks are
Yeah.
okay, breaks are normal. And I think
Yeah.
having a layoff, a significant layoff, um, can be important too, you know, because when you eventually come back to it, and let's be honest, we all eventually come back to it because we're addicted to this shit. When we eventually come
Yeah.
back to it, we kind of look at it with fresh eyes and it's reinvigorating, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Like, you know, sometimes you need to push through a little minor roadblock and, be a little bit tough with yourself to try and get that motivation back. But if it's something that's really kind of like not interesting you anymore, or is even causing you like distress because you feel like you are not being as productive as you should be, or you wonder like why is this not working for me, why am I not enjoying this anymore? You're totally right, it's often better just to step back from it, do something else, give it a break, and you'll come back to it, like you said, with fresh eyes and fresh enthusiasm. That nostalgia will always be there for us because it was a hobby that we picked up during a very kind of impressionable part of our lives. And it'll always be there for us. So don't kind of force yourself if you're really not enjoying it. But if you've got that kind of little minor kind of roadblock, then definitely encourage you to kind of push through and find that motivation. Do you have any particular techniques to kind of maintain that motivation during a tough kind of painting project? When you're coming home tired from work every day and you feel like you should be painting, but you just, you're all burnt out and stuff. Is there anything you do in the hobby to kind of try and encourage yourself or make it easier for yourself to sit down every night and do a little bit of hobby?
I think since, working a little bit more and, having a young family and that sort of stuff, I've had to change my approach to how I
Yeah,
hobby, and to stay productive. So where I used to just come home from work, eat dinner, spend 3.5 hours or 4 hours and paint till 11:30 at night before work the next day. I can't do that stuff anymore because I get up before the sun comes up these days to go to work.
yeah,
Um, so that means earlier nights. Um, on the weekend, I used to sit in the chair for like 8 hours, whether I did airbrushing or building or converting or brush painting, like it didn't matter. I was in the chair for 8 hours and nothing was going to stop that. Then all of a sudden I had to really change my approach and the way, like it was frustrating to change that as well. You know, in the early stages, it was really frustrating not to have the ability to like lock myself in a room for one day on the weekend and just paint. It wasn't an option anymore. So now I'm looking at projects like, well, okay, if I can create a big batch of models, they can be varied. They don't have to be one unit. Let's say it might be 2 Terminator squads and a squad of 10 gun pigs, right? I know that'll carry me through for a while. So I might organize 3 or 4 hours in the day where I can do all the airbrushing and preliminary works on those models. And then I can chip away at things in little chunks, night by night, or whenever I've got a little window hobby opportunity. So whether that's 10 minutes just to get a little bit of, you know, extra microset and microsol on some transfers to allow me to be more productive for the next day, I'll take that little 10-minute window and just reapply some solution, right? Because it's going to set me up for the next day. Or I may work in smaller batches. So after I've airbrushed a large batch of several units, I'll just focus on one unit. I've airbrushed multiple units for consistency across the army and to knock out those preliminary stages in one session that I've purposely designated my time to. And then for me, it's easier to just crack on with the brush in little chunks and to work on things in small portions moving forward. Because all my preliminary work is already done. So what I find myself doing more these days is shorter hobby sessions of an evening. They may be anywhere between half an hour to an hour and a half. And that might be 3 or 4 times a week, right? And then managing that and knowing how fast I can paint or knowing how fast that scheme's going to take me will then kind of let me manage how I'm going to put my hobby in my calendar. I'm a bit of a planner, so I like to write things down a lot, especially when it comes to hobby productivity. So if I'm like commuting to work or I'm on the train or if I'm pretending to take a poo at work and just hiding away for 10 minutes, right? I'll quickly type out maybe what I think is achievable over the next week or two of hobby, or what's going to kind of be my month by month breakdown to the next event. Okay, I'm going to finish this unit this month. Then I need to focus on my 2 tanks in the next month, right? Before the event in the 3rd month. So that's the way I kind of go about things now. And I think it's working for me. I think it's working. I mean, there are some weeks where life just slaps you down and you just need to just shelve hobby for the week because that's what life demands of you. But getting back to it, it's just about creating things that are attainable, I think. And it's probably a good segue onto the next sort of point in, okay, if we are going through a slump or we're struggling to kind of pick up the brush again, how do we regenerate that momentum? And obviously, what I've just said is one thing. If that still isn't working, what I find for me personally, the best thing to do is go see some hobby boyfriends, go play a game, right? Or catch up with your mates, discuss painting, discuss hobby, because that enthusiasm that we all share with our gaming group is infectious, right? Well, for me, it is anyway. And that really starts to drive the hunger again, right? The
Mm-hmm.
heresy bug starts to bite, and
Yeah.
the hobby mojo comes back. So that's probably the technique that I lean upon in order to reinvigorate myself. Is it different for you?
I really liked what you said about writing things down. I also take that approach. I don't plan things out as far ahead as you do, but particularly when I'm batch painting units and I'm coming home pretty tired from work and it's hard to motivate myself to go out to the shed and put in some time with the brushes. I always like to write down when I finish a session, I write down the next steps that I need to achieve in the next session, just so that as soon as I sit down, I know what I need to do. There's no kind of brain fog getting in the way of saying, "Oh, have I done this yet? Have I done that yet? What do I need to do
Procrastinating.
next?"
I'm a
Yeah, just write
procrastinator.
down. Yeah, just write down 3 or 4 steps, and I know that those are what need to be done. Um, you can be tactical with it as well. Try and get to a stage where you're going to be varnishing things at the end of the session, so that they have a time, a chance to cure
Mm,
overnight. Just things like that, or get to the transfers next, because I can leave them overnight with the microsol and microset, so that they're properly adhered and shaped to the models. So yeah, I like to write things down the way you do as well, and I find that's a really good way to combat like fatigue and brain fog, and when you don't have the energy to think about what you need to do, and you've only just got enough energy left to kind of do what you need to do. Writing that down can make things much easier, and it also kind of shows you the progress that you have made. When you feel like you maybe aren't making progress, you're able to tick things off that
mm,
list as they're done. And it also kind of just the act of writing them down the night before, that they'll be in my head then for the next day, and I'll be thinking about those things while I'm at work. And maybe I'll change up the order of how I kind of plan to do things, or maybe I'll add in an extra step somewhere, or remove a step if it seems superfluous. So just writing things down kind of solidifies them for me a little bit, and allows me to process them while I'm not doing hobby, so that when I do get to do hobby, it's very much about kind of, yeah, doing rather than thinking, and I find that kind of much easier.
very interesting. It's good to hear
Yeah,
your kind of methodology. Yeah, because
yeah.
that's one thing that blows my mind about you. You're just always painting. I'm like, where does he get all the momentum from? Like
It
constantly churning out minis.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't
It's the same.
necessarily need that process when I'm doing one-off kind of test models, but when I'm batch painting, I find that method really useful. Or if I'm doing something for an army and I need to follow the same steps for each model, that's really useful. And like obviously these days, I write down everything I do as I go, so that I can turn them into tutorials for the Patreon. But for that kind of, it was a lot more kind of freestyle. So it's definitely kind of something that I've brought into the hobby for me a lot more now. Whereas I was just ticking off lists to achieve before. Now I'm kind of properly writing down the processes. So
Mm.
it's slowing down the process a bit, but it means that I can replicate them at a later step if I need to. And when it comes to painting that scheme again, I already have those steps written down, so I can go back through them and tick them off again for each unit that I paint in that scheme. So I find that really useful.
Well, Kieran, funny that you mentioned the Patreon because for those that do not know, that's where we produce and publish all our PDF tutorials. Approximately, they come out once every fortnight.
Yep,
So whether that's me painting something or sculpting something, in this case, like the next tutorial that's going to be released,
yep,
either you or I will release something every couple of weeks on there. And it is also the place to go if you want to see a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff, what we're working on, whips, work in progress stuff. We share hobby ideas on there. Everyone is welcome to ask us all sorts of hobby questions. there's full transparency, no secrets there. So if you aren't a Patreon member, consider checking it out. That's at patreon.com/powerfist. And you can also sign up for a free member. And if you sign up for a free member, it's on a 7-day trial. You get the look behind the curtain to all the work in progress stuff and community stuff that goes on there. And I think for the price of a couple of coffees a month, you also get full access to the PDF tutorial library. So make sure you guys check that out if you haven't done so. And of course, if you do like the podcast, please give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. We only do amateur numbers compared to some others out there, but it does mean a lot. And yeah, we do love engaging with you in the comments below too. So we would like to hear from you guys about your hobby mojo. How does it work?
Yeah.
What do you find momentum from? What's your painting methodology? How do you go about being productive? We'll be keen to hear it.
Yeah. How do you avoid burnout as well? And I'd like to hear some examples of people. Maybe it's not such a positive thing, but examples of people burning out and kind of what they learned from that and what to avoid next time. Like me, like not painting for events. So like that's the big thing I learned.
Yeah.
So yeah, you learn things, and I haven't had any kind of experience like that since. So yeah, what have you learned along the way, and what's your approach?
Perfect. Kieran, thank you very much again, sir. Let's
Thank
get
you.
out of here.
See you later.
Hardcore Heresy.